Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Connected Wellness Podcast. I'm Rachel Ann. I'm here with Marianne and a very lovely special guest that y'all will meet in a second. And we are all so passionate about wellness.
Here in this podcast, we look at the ways our physical, emotional, and spiritual health is all connected and how we can take better care of our whole selves holistically so we can live our best lives. We're really excited that you're here with us on the journey. Welcome to episode 49 of the podcast.
49 already?
49, I think
Oh my gosh.
a huge milestone here. Very exciting, but
Wow.
we're excited about every episode, but yeah.
I have
Oh
been
my
here since the
gosh.
inception. So I
Yes.
remember this even being a thought of a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yes.
am
Shout
so
out to
proud of you
you.
guys from the beginning because what you guys do is so important and so relevant to people that, well, for me. So
Thank
thank you
you.
guys. And I
Thank
hope you keep going.
you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
we
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hopefully there will be 49 more. Let's just keep it
yeah.
going. Well, as long as we
Yes.
have listeners and things to talk about, which I feel like we will always have things to talk about,
Yeah.
we will try to keep this going. So, guys,
Yes.
who is this guy here next to me? Maybe we should talk about this. Our
Yeah.
wonderful guest
Marianne,
for
who is he?
today is the one and only my husband, Chris. Yay! Who tune in will have already met Chris if they are lucky. But for those that don't know, Chris is here. He is my husband. We thought we had, Brandon on. I think maybe it's time that we have Chris on. And we
Yes.
came up with, I think, the perfect topic for
Mhm.
Chris to share.
Mhm.
Has a lot of experience with this particular topic, and I think it's going to be really helpful. So let me
Yeah.
tell you about Chris, and then
Mhm.
we'll get into why he's with us today. So Chris was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and then when he was
You're
a teenager, yes, he moved to Florida. That was in the 90s. We don't really like to talk about age here, but that was in the 90s.
I have
And
no problem with age.
this is the best time in the music era, he says. Shout out to
Yes.
hip hop, especially in Brooklyn.
Yes.
And then Chris got his bachelor's degree from the University of Florida. He went on to pursue a doctorate of dental surgery degree from Howard University in DC. During that time, he married his lovely wife, his words, that would be me.
True.
That was in 2006. He says this is one of the best decisions he's ever made in his
Mhm.
entire life.
By far.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'd agree as well. After that, he did a general practice dental residency at a level one trauma center in Ohio, and then he
Mhm.
became a clinical director for a large dental practice, and more recently, a dental director for the Primary Health Network, which is one of the largest federally qualified health centers here in Pennsylvania. He also
Wow.
serves as adjunct faculty for the University of Pittsburgh Dental School. So, yeah, he's got
Yeah.
mad credentials. If we ever need dentistry, stuff, we should bring him back. But
Yeah.
other than that, Chris is an avid Steeler fan, much to my displeasure, especially on Sunday afternoons when I like it to be nice and quiet. But he enjoys other things like being next to bodies of water, especially the beach. He likes to play
Mm,
video games, and he really
mm.
enjoys building Legos, which is more relaxing than you would think.
I love
Love
Um,
that.
Legos.
Oh, welcome, Chris. We're so happy to have you on. Wow, that is quite the bio. Like, I don't really know if there's anything else that we need to add on to that.
that
You're
you
like,
need to
this is who I
know,
am.
yeah. This
Yeah,
No,
is
I'm
this
a
that's
is
good.
Chris
superhero.
in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't like hearing about myself too much, but that's fine.
So, okay, but like, why is Chris here? So we told you about him. So the thing that we
Mm,
didn't mention there is, we've been married for a long time. Clearly, we've been together for a long time, and for much of that time, I struggle with some anxiety, issues like that we have talked about on here. So
mhm,
I thought it would be great, and we agreed that it would be really helpful to have Chris here talking about how to support your partner who is struggling with anxiety or maybe
mm,
with anything, because he
mm,
is pretty good at that. And I thought it would be a good discussion um, for all of us and for other people,
mm.
whether you are the one struggling, whether you have a partner, loved one, friend, anyone who is struggling, right? How can you support them? So yeah, I think it'll be a good conversation.
Mhm.
For sure.
Perfect topic. Thank you for volunteering yourself as tribute again, Marianne. Shout out to you just being like, "Hi, welcome to everything that goes on in my mind," and now to invite your husband into the fun. Thank you
Hmm.
for saying yes, Chris, to the
We
fun. So
agreed
I'm
Sure.
excited.
that
Absolutely.
a big part of wellness is, vulnerability and
Hmm.
to share, and
Mhm.
that's how you get support. So here
Yeah,
we are.
girl.
But let's start on a high note. Some wellness wins. Do you have one for us, Rachel?
Yeah, I can go first. So my wellness win is that I went to Seattle, which is one of my favorite places in the entire world, and I was like, I just need to live here. If you're somebody who prays, pray that the Lord changes my husband's mind and that he will want to go to Seattle one day. But until then, I go basically once a year, usually around my birthday. Chris, you would love it. Lots of bodies of water,
Oh.
not as much sunshine, but it's
Mhm.
still quite pleasant weather-wise, in my opinion. And I was just surrounded by nature, some really cool people. One of my closest friends lives there. So it was just like a lovely time, and I'm really glad that I was able to go. So that's my wellness one.
Okay. Awesome. What about you, Chris?
Um, I think I would say a wellness one would be uh remembering to be like grateful for what you have. Sometimes like you'll have a rough day,
Mm,
you'll have a rough week or rough month, but you start to question, oh, everything is miserable. I need to change in this or XYZ. But then you remember, what am I grateful for? And to appreciate those things that um, are in your life or work or
mm,
friends or spouses or loved ones, and just remember those things and be grateful for them because they're much more
mm,
important than whatever outside circumstances are happening.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great.
I actually must share this quote that I just saw that said, "Don't let a season of suffering become a lifetime of suffering."
Mm,
So,
Mm,
like, just, yeah,
mm,
sometimes there's a season of difficulty, a day, a week, a month, in a year, whatever, but that doesn't mean it has to be your whole life, right?
yeah.
So, yeah,
mm.
Wow.
I like
I
that.
love
That's
that.
good.
That's a great reminder. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you guys. That was good. Yeah, I love nature. That's why I like water because usually you're going to
Yes.
find some nature
Oh,
nearby.
definitely.
Yep,
So I think
dude.
that's a combination of why I like it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to Seattle, man. You would love it.
Yeah, it is on our
We've said
list.
that.
Yeah.
We want to
Yeah, we
go.
need.
Yeah.
Mm,
Um, okay, my wellness win is that I don't know, it's like an unwellness to begin with, I think. So I was like super sick at the beginning of the week. I don't even
mm,
know like what was the matter, but I'm getting better. I'm not 100% better, but I'm getting better. But my win
mm,
that I'll call it is that I really hate having to call off work. Hate having to cancel class. Like it's a hassle. I feel bad, for my
yeah,
colleagues, for my students. Like it's just kind of a pain. So I
yeah,
really like don't do it often at all. But like this
mm,
earlier this week, I was just like not okay. I was like not doing well at all.
mm,
Physically, which was making me anxious. Like, I have a lot of, I think, health anxiety. So like when I'm not feeling well, like I get more anxious. So, and then one feeds the other, right? Like you get like symptoms, because you're
mm,
anxious. So it was just like not a good combination. And so multiple days, like I asked for what I needed. So like on Monday, I asked if I could work from home, see students on Zoom for advising. My supervisors were like, yeah, that's fine. Tuesday, I
mm,
canceled class. Wednesday, I canceled class, which is very unusual for me, but I just felt like this is what I need to do right now. Like, I need to take care of
mm,
myself. I need to get better. I don't need the added stress of like trying to go to work when I'm not feeling it. Like that's
yeah,
just more stress and makes me more anxious. So,
yeah,
I'll take that as my win. I was able to go to work later in the day, Wednesday, yesterday,
mm,
so that's good. I think it meant that it worked and I was starting to feel better. So allowing myself to take that time, I really, really hate having to do that. I'm usually very reluctant. I'm going to call that my win.
yeah. That's a
That's a
really
good
big
win.
win, Marianne.
Thanks.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yeah, with of course a lot of his support.
good.
Definitely. But so let me just tell you about this topic that we decided to do this topic, I don't know, a month ago or something, right?
Mhm,
Like maybe more than a month ago. And then this week has been horrible for my anxiety because of these,
Mm,
I have the things that I'm most anxious about. This is just Marianne put it all out there, but is my health and the health of my loved ones, the well-being of my loved ones.
mm,
Those are the two things that make me the most anxious. So this week I
mm,
had both of those issues. I had my own, health that I don't really know what's going on, and some stuff going on with my loved ones. So it was just like this whole thing, and I was not really okay. And Chris has had to be there for me all week as usual. Um, but it's just funny because now it's very fresh in both of our minds, this whole idea of how do you support your anxious partner. So
Talk about God's timing. Right.
yeah, I don't know if he
mm.
wanted it to be really fresh
Mhm.
and raw for us so that we
Yep.
can have a authentic
That's how God
conversation
works.
about it. But I guess
Yeah.
whatever you want, God. That's
Yeah.
so yeah. So Chris, I mean, I don't even know where to start with this. I mean,
Let's start from the beginning.
yeah, what to ask you, but like, I don't know. Maybe it's too personal for me, Rachel. If you have anywhere to start, any questions to get Chris going here for us?
Yeah, I think so. Something that I'm thinking about, obviously, share as much and as little as you want, right? Like, be free. Is when you are noticing that Marianne is feeling anxious, is there any feelings that come up for you? Is there anything that you're like, I should do XYZ? Like, what's going on in your mind and in your body when you are noticing Marianne feeling anxious?
So if you want to, before you get to like answering that question, like you have to know who your partner is. You have
Mm-hmm.
to know, um, what is it that makes them tick? What makes them anxious? What makes them lead to those uh, behaviors or reactions to things. So
Mm,
I think it's very important to understand who your partner is, and that takes time. Like
mm,
before I can decide, oh, how I'm going to deal with this anxious partner, is to understand who my partner is.
mm,
And that is in any relationship. Like let's say you're dealing with a client, you're dealing with a student who has anxiety issues. You don't on day one say this is how you fix this.
Hmm.
No, there's a
mhm,
relationship, there's a step-by-step process to develop that, either partner intimacy, to be able to understand what are those things that make them tick, what makes them um, go into an episode of anxiety. And
mm,
once you learn that, and are patient enough to want to learn those things, if you're in a loving relationship, that's when you
Hmm.
can start to answer those questions about, okay, how do I handle this with my partner? I know my partner
mm,
gets very anxious about X. Okay, right now she may need me to sit and listen and be quiet. Maybe I need to just
mm.
be quiet. Maybe she's not looking for a solution right now. Maybe she's just
Yeah.
wants my presence.
Mm,
Or maybe there are, I need your help with this. Then start talking, and talking in a
mm,
way that may be helpful, and not something that may feed into that anxiety, but to kind of counteract it. I don't know if that
mm,
answers your question, but it's a layered process before
Hmm.
you get to like what's in my thoughts on how to, and I don't like to work deal with my partner, because it's like
Or just
that's a problem.
respond.
But like, how
Right.
do I
mm,
lovingly respond?
Hmm.
Exactly. How do I
mm,
help in this situation then make it worse?
mm,
Well, yeah, I think like what you're getting at is that the way you respond now, 21 years into knowing each other, is very different than you would have 20 years ago, right? Because of how much we know each other now. Yeah. So I agree. Like you have to take the time to get to know one another. And it is going to be difficult in the beginning until
mm.
I mean, it's difficult no matter what. We can get into that, but it's more
Yeah,
difficult when you don't know exactly what to expect, or exactly what's going through their head, or why, or what was the trigger,
yeah.
right? What's going to make it worse, what's going to make it better. Yeah. um I do want to respond to something that you said about not jumping to be like, here's what you need to do to fix it, right? Like that is
Mm,
still something that I know it's that's difficult for you, and it's difficult for a lot of people, when something is wrong, they just want to fix it. And that's
Mm,
normal. I think that's a normal reaction. Um, but that's not always what I'm looking for, right?
Right.
Um, yeah. So that
mm,
takes a lot of like patience
Hmm.
and almost restraint on your part, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, here's a secret: you're not the same people.
mm,
The way I would react to something is going to be very different to how she reacts to something.
Mm,
How I respond is going to be different to how she responds. And
mm,
it's not just here. In any situation where you have to function in a relationship basis, whether it be work or otherwise, someone may take on a task and they're just like all over the place, like, we have to get this done, da, 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 but just and they may get it done successfully, but how I may do it may be very, very different. When
mm,
my partner has a task that sends them into an anxious episode, it may not just be about that specific thing that's going on, but maybe a culmination of things that they're worried about. So there
mm,
may be
mm,
some depth to that reaction that's not based on, one thing that's going on, but something that may have been building up. Maybe there was some lack of communication between the partners, and they haven't been able to express themselves for
mhm,
something, and
mm,
that may build up into um, them going into a phase of being anxious or exhibiting those behaviors. um
mm,
have you guys have you ever seen Inside Out, the movie?
yeah. Mhm,
I tell this to everyone: if you are looking into getting into behavioral health or into the psychology field, that is a
mhm,
movie you have to
mhm,
watch. in
yes.
in the second one, shout out to Disney if you want to sponsor.
mhm. Did you see the second one, Rachel?
I didn't. I have yet to see it
Oh,
though. It's so good,
Okay,
I heard.
I
you
won't
have to
ruin it
because
for you,
anxiety
Mhm,
but
plays a big
anxiety
role.
plays a role in the
mhm,
second one. But the
mhm,
way it displays anxiety, it's like uh, a crazy circus going on in the
mm,
middle of like a panic attack
Mhm.
that's happening, and how it
mm,
displays.
And it
Now,
takes over like everything, you
eh,
know what I mean? Which is
mm,
exactly right. Like it takes over your sense of
yeah,
reason,
yeah,
your rational thought, like it just takes over everything.
and it
Yeah.
didn't get there
yeah,
overnight. There was a
yeah,
build up to it.
Hmm.
So your
yeah,
partner, it's not like a flip of the switch. Sometimes it's a build up to getting to those times where they become anxious. So
mm,
um, I guess the point is, if you're willing to take the time and learn, about your partner, and
mm,
listen to your partner versus hearing them, because there's a difference between
mhm,
listening and hearing. Um, you can start to pick up those. From your last episode, you talked about burnout. So they
mm,
may start to be burning, and they may
mm,
start to get into phases where they may start to get into that anxious state, and how you need to respond depends on how good that relationship is. So
Mhm.
that takes time.
mm, mm. You said something really interesting, which is there's a difference between hearing and listening. Can we dive deeper into that? Like what is the difference in how is that helpful to do one versus the other?
Okay, um, I'll talk to guys. 'Cause I'm a guy. Guys, pay attention. Pay attention. There's a huge difference between listening and hearing. Hearing is like you're like hearing music. It's passive. It just kind of like is just something that's going in and out. There's not much processing that's happening. It's a very passive situation that's happening when you're just hearing something. Listening is a very active situation.
Mm,
You're processing the words, you're formulating thoughts, you're maybe thinking about, okay, I may need to respond to this. So when you are listening to somebody, it's a very active and dynamic um, way of communicating, because
mm,
a lot of times it may not be verbal. So
Mhm.
if you're
mm,
really listening to your partner, that is a very active approach. And many times
mm,
when you have someone who is anxious, they may just want you to just listen and process, and then based on that processing, you may or may not need to respond. So I think that that's a huge difference. And if you can train yourself on listening versus hearing your partner, or in any situation that requires good communication,
Mhm.
it makes a world of a difference, I believe.
Mm, mm,
I think part of listening to what you may have been getting at it is almost like reading between the lines,
Yeah.
right? Like,
mm,
so again, the more you know someone, the more you can hear and see what they're saying without them necessarily even saying it, right? The body language, the way that they're talking, etc. But yeah, so again, it sounds like that hearing is a sensory process, right? There's like the
mm,
sensory cells in your ears and they go to the whatever part of your brain, but like you don't
mm,
necessarily do anything with it, right? But it sounds
mhm,
like listening, you're doing something with it, you're making connections, you're following up if necessary, yeah. Yeah, I think
mm.
that's a good distinction.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about for people who are maybe early on in their dating, or maybe they just struggle with the reading between the lines. Are there things that can be helpful, or like are they just expected to just be the mind reader for their partner, or are there ways that they can learn what's happening with their partner without feeling that pressure to know everything and potentially then be able to read between the lines?
Can I respond first?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry,
I love
I'll
that you raised
respond
your
from
hand,
from the
Marianne.
needed, from the person who's struggling, and you can respond from the other
Sure.
side. But I think that first of all, the tone you're set in the relationship is so important, right? So I need to feel
Mhm.
safe in expressing myself to my partner, right? Or to
Yeah.
whoever, my friend, my loved one. I need to feel safe. So as long as you've given me that safety, that feeling that, I can tell you exactly how I'm feeling, then I need to be willing to realize he cannot read my mind, right? And I
Mm,
need to express exactly what I need to express. And at the same time, I would like from my partner to be willing to ask questions. Like if I'm freaking out or
yeah.
whatever it is, it would be fine for him to be like, I don't understand what you're upset about. Can you help me understand
Mm,
why you're upset?
mm,
Right? So from his point of view, asking if they need to understand or if they need more information,
mm,
and from me being willing to share that, and again feeling that comfort in being able to share that.
Right.
mm.
So I don't know if you've ever given this example of like the socks on the floor, sort
Did
of.
we? I
Ah,
don't know if we talked about that. Did we
Okay.
talk about that?
we didn't. I talked about that recently with a friend of mine, and I was like, "Why is this the thing?" But yes, go
Wait,
for
your
it.
husband leaves socks on the floor?
Yeah, apparently that's like a
It,
husband thing.
it's just a husband. Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We need a support group. Mhm.
Yeah.
So here's what I've learned. So if I leave socks on the floor, which I still do, and your
It bothers me less over
your
time.
your partner were to look at those socks and become furiously angry, in my head, I'm kind of like they're just socks on the floor.
Mhm.
What's the big deal? But in time, if you get to understand your partner, this is not just about socks on the floor. This is about
Mhm.
you maybe not respecting my opinion. Maybe you
Mhm.
not thinking that what I do around the house matters. You are
Mm.
not listening to me. Like
Mm.
it could be much more layered than just having socks on the floor. So
Spaghetti.
Mhm.
exactly.
Have we talked about spaghetti brain? Or-
I don't think we talked about spaghetti brain.
Well, I guess a very quick summary. Most of the time, this is true of women, but it doesn't have to be true of women. And I'm sure some men are like this, that our brains are more like spaghetti, and that one thought leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to
Mm.
another. So again, we can go from socks on the floor to you don't love me, and
Mm.
Chris will be like, what are you talking about? I just left my socks on the floor. But it leads to all of these things, like, again, you don't respect me, you don't care about my feelings, you don't blah blah, blah blah
Mm.
blah, whatever. And it reminds me of how
Mm.
10 years ago you did this and I was really hurt. And it
Mhm.
just keeps leading to a bunch of thoughts. And it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a negative spaghetti spiral. Right? This example is a specifically negative spaghetti spiral, but I
Yeah.
find this to be true of myself in general with thoughts, that like one thought leads to another. And then like
Yeah.
in 30 seconds, I'm thinking about the most random thing ever, right? Like, where did that
Mhm.
come from? But it's because of this spaghetti situation. Whereas the other kind of brain is a waffle brain where it's more
Mm.
compartmentalized. Like for him,
Mm.
socks are socks. Like the only thing this means is I'm a little bit lazy to put my socks in the hamper. Like
Mm,
that's it. It means nothing other than this, right? So that's the difference. It's a fascinating theory that the more we dove into it, we found it to be um like representative of our two different brain types. Like he was saying, your brains are
yeah.
different,
Yeah.
and that's
Mhm,
something you have to respect and understand for anything in a relationship of any sort. Again, whether I'm talking about me and my mom, right? Having an argument, well, her brain is
mm,
different than my brain, so I see things
mm,
differently than her. Right? Me and my friend, me and my coworker, like it doesn't matter. Any relationship, that's such an important thing to recognize.
Yeah, and to
mm,
touch on, you're different people. Again, you're not the same people. For instance, like in that waffle scenario, there's a nothing box. There's a nothing box. And it's supposed to describe how men think, like everything's compartmentalized. There is a nothing box.
Meaning
Should
sometimes you're
wow.
thinking about nothing.
Yes,
Oh,
Ha-
I want that. How
which
do you
doesn't.
do
Right?
that?
Doesn't that
Oh my
sound so
gosh.
blissful? Like, oh,
Yes.
Oh, because yeah, she'll often look at me. What are you thinking about? Nothing. That's
I'm
not
like, nah,
possible.
that's
That
not
you're thinking
possible.
about nothing.
Yeah,
No,
you
there's
don't want to
nothing
tell
there.
me that you're thinking about the Steelers right now, right? Like you're thinking about tomorrow's game. You just don't want to tell me. But yeah, that this is like a total side note, but
Side note,
I think
tangent.
it's
Sorry.
it's it's a fun topic. If
But it describes kind of like same scenario. Like if you can understand that your partner, um, many things connect to one another. So they
Mm,
may become anxious about um, socks on the floor because, oh my gosh, this may lead to this person doesn't love me anymore, which may
mm,
seem irrational, but to them it may not be irrational. So
mm,
in their minds, this thing leads to another, and it can get into that. Um, Again, if you watch Inside Out too, it's like a crazy circus in the brain, which doesn't make any
mm,
sense. But to them, it's affecting them very deeply, just
mhm,
because that's how that person is. And
mm,
they make those connections, however real or not. It's something that you need to understand how to lovingly respond to. So
yeah.
not
so
too far fetched.
sounds like if
Mhm,
if you are able to just ask. So
Yeah.
again,
mm,
freak out about socks. Then if you just be like, hey, what's really going on? Like what's actually
mm,
bothering you, And so it takes patience and compassion from both people too. Like,
mm,
I need to understand that first of all, he's not here to fix me, right? Like, I have issues and he's not here to fix me and he is not in my brain. So he can't understand like sometimes why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling. But I still like need to be able to appreciate that he's making an effort to support me,
mm,
right? To be patient with me, the most patient person I know for the most part. Like so I think it really does go both ways. But can I ask a question? So you use the word irrational,
Hmm.
right? And I
mm,
think that was a question I had when thinking about this. Like I recognize that sometimes when I am anxious, my thoughts are irrational. I think that's
mm.
perhaps a one of the hallmarks, right, of
Yep.
anxious thinking, right? Like that it's irrational fears or something like that. So I think it's difficult for someone who is very rational and logical, like Chris, when I am spouting these irrational thoughts that I know, even when I'm spouting them, I know they're irrational, but that doesn't mean my whatever is it, my amygdala is not being activated. It's still being activated, the anxious parts of my brain. And so even though
Yeah.
I know that it's irrational, I'm still anxious. So how
Yeah.
do you respond without just being like, that's ridiculous? Because that's not a helpful response, even though that's kind
Yeah.
of maybe what you want to say.
Mhm.
Um,
That's a good
So
question.
yeah.
um, two things first. One, we're not the same people, and you have to both parties have to understand that. Like you may
Mm,
say, "Oh, I know he's trying to like help me, but this is not helping." Okay, so that's one. Two, here's another secret, guys. Pay attention. Don't try and fix things.
Yeah.
Like, don't just be like, "Oh, just do this and you'll be fine." No, that's not. That's how maybe how I may handle something, but that may not be how my partner handles something.
mhm,
Because for me, like things are when I treat patients, like we need to do ABC, and this is how we get get you healthy. Um, and that's how I operate on a daily basis. That is not the same thing as operating in a relationship. So
Mm,
you can't be dismissive of those feelings. You can't say, no, you're wrong. This is not right, because they're obviously working through something. They're obviously dealing with
mhm,
something. So you can't just jump into saying that you're being irrational, or that's not right, or you need to do it like this, because the way that you may be processing something may not be the same way that I would. So
mm,
that does require like patience, and this is probably not something you're going to do when you're looking to date someone day one. That's this is it's not something that happens very early on in a
Mhm.
relationship, but
mm,
it takes time. So as
mm,
you build those like foundational building blocks of a healthy, very important, a healthy relationship, not one that's like
mm,
one-sided where someone is just, you know, putting everything on you and just expecting you to take it, but
mm,
having an open, relationship where you can share with one another. You're in a comfortable enough space to be able to say, you know what, sweetheart, I think, we may be dealing with something right now. So how can I help or not help? Do you want me to sit here? Do you want me to cry with you? Do you need some tissues? Do we need to get you, a cup of tea? Do we need to go for a walk? Do we need to
yeah,
go watch Gilmore Girls, for the hundredth
yeah.
time? So
Or he's not mentioning, or do you need to go to the doctor?
yeah,
Right? Or do you
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
seek support beyond what I can give you? I've asked you before, hey, do you think I should, you know, try and find a therapist? And you were like, yeah, I think
mhm,
maybe that's a good idea.
mhm,
Or
mhm,
like, hey, do I really, is this just like a anxiety symptom, or should I go to a doctor about this? And you were like, you know what, go to the doctor. Like, that for your own peace of
mhm,
mind. And this is maybe beyond the support that you can offer. So yeah, I think that's important to note that. Again, I hope you know that you're not supposed to fix me,
right.
right? And I need to know that as well. So support is one thing, but like, you need to know where's that boundary of this is kind of beyond what I can do, right?
Because
mm,
it's hard to watch your partner struggle, or a
yeah,
friend
yeah,
struggle,
Any loved
or
one.
yeah,
anyone that may care about, in any way. It's hard to see them struggle. So for some people, they want to jump into like, how can I get you out of the struggle?
Mhm.
Because I can't bear to watch you like this.
Mhm.
And that can be selfish, because you may offer things to, you just need to do this and you'll be fine. This
mm,
is how you fix yourself. But if you step back, and again, if you're in a healthy, loving relationship, you have to be selfless enough to be like, I don't think I can help you, and
mm,
be able to recognize that and say, we may need some help that is outside of us, an
Mhm.
unbiased opinion, a health professional,
Mhm.
some more guidance outside of like what this is happening, because I may not be able to help you, and we may end up spiraling together, which doesn't help anyone.
Mhm.
So if
mm,
situation where this is outside of your wheelhouse, this is probably something that you may need to seek help for,
Mhm.
and feel
mm,
comfortable enough to say that, because that may be
mhm,
hard to tell somebody that you love. You know what, I think you need help. That's a huge step. I mean, it's hard for people themselves to say, you know what, I need to call a therapist because I'm having these anxious thoughts, these depressive episodes, or whatever the case may be. It's hard to take that step. Even harder for someone that is not experiencing that, see somebody else do that and then suggest something like that. Because are they going to get
yeah,
mad at me?
Yeah.
Are they going to
yeah,
dismiss those ideas? Because if you end up in a situation where it's destructive, um, you have to know how to maybe protect yourself. Hey,
yeah,
I don't think I can help this person. And
yeah,
I love them so much that I need to like maybe step away and, find someone who can. And that's really hard to do, um,
mm.
in situations like that. So,
Yeah, it sounds like boundaries. Like I'm hearing that
Yeah, yeah,
patience,
perfect
psychological
word.
safety, active listening, boundaries, those are all parts of the foundation of what goes into being able that like you can support them. And I something I'm wondering is like is that how you're able to stay calm when your partner is feeling anxious? Like is it cuz you have boundaries? Do you just like pray a lot? Do you what do you do to stay
I
calm
think
that way?
he's blessed with calm genes, is what I think.
Amen.
But
That's great.
Well, it's it's multifaceted, and I'll just speak personally. I mean,
yeah,
this is just how my experience has been growing up. Because whenever you go through something, let it, albeit being a difficult situation or a difficult decision or a difficult um, circumstance, and seeing that, oh, I can get through this. Oh, I
Mm,
prayed and I got through this. In the middle of
mm,
it, probably not, but I got through this, and I asked God to help me with this. It probably didn't seem like it in the middle of it, but as time went on, I would look back and would say, "Oh wow, my timing didn't matter whatsoever, but His timing was way better." And
mm,
when you go through several things, where you have to experience those things, like there's no way around going through like a difficult decision or the loss of a loved one or making career choices or any of those things or failure or anything like that, and going through that experiences and seeing the other side of it and seeing God's faithfulness through those things, and
mm,
again maybe not feeling it in the middle of that. When you go through those things, you start to learn, like, okay, I trust you now. So whenever you
mm.
experience anything, you start with, okay, here's another thing. God, I'm gonna leave this for you.
Yeah.
I'll do the best that I can, but I can't worry about the thousand things that may happen. I'm gonna worry about this next 10 minutes. I'm going to worry about this next hour. I'm going to worry
Mm,
just about, tonight. I just need to get through today. I'm going to get through tomorrow. So, once you
mm,
learn to focus on the present, you start to learn that, you know, you don't have God's eyes. You can't see the future. So, why am I going to
mhm.
stress about something I can't see, I can't control? And,
Yeah.
who am I to, you know, not trust God to take care of my future? So if you rely on
Mm,
those things and
mm,
trust God enough to say, you know, I'm going to let you take the wheel and really take the wheel, because like when He says
mm.
be anxious for nothing, for real, be anxious for nothing. Not just
Yep.
be like, anxious on some things, or probably don't be anxious, or, the verse
Mm,
doesn't say,
try not
try
to
not to be anxious. It says be
be
anxious
anxious
for
less.
nothing. So
yeah.
you should be
Nothing.
anxious for nothing. So, and that's, waking up, every day and knowing that, no matter what happens, if life goes sideways, God's going to get me through this. And,
Mm,
if you feel like He didn't get you through this, there's probably a reason for it. So,
mhm, mhm.
all those things, to circle back to your question, when you go through those things, and that experience, you start to see things from His eyes versus mine.
Mm,
So when I see my partner struggling with something, or
mm,
being anxious over something, you stop. Okay, I may not be able to handle this, but I know through God's grace I can. So let
mm,
me see how. Does this mean that I need to seek help? Does this mean I need to be quiet? Does this mean I need to take action? What does that action look like? So reacting in those ways and learning through those experiences has taught me to be, you know, calm and not react.
mm.
Very
Wow.
convicting. You said be anxious for nothing like 12 times, and I'm just like, dang, I'm so failing.
Yeah,
He wrote it was written. It,
I know. You
it,
speak the truth. I know. I
yeah.
need to repent of my anxiety,
there's
clearly.
it's
Yeah.
not about repenting, because
But I mean, it is. I'm not like trying to be weird about it, but it is. Yeah, I should not be so anxious. That doesn't mean something is wrong with me, but it just means I need to ask for help. Yeah, that's all.
Mm.
And that's how
Yeah.
you can, compliment your partner. You know, if you know them well enough to be able to read those signs and uh, almost, I don't want to say get ready for battle, but something's coming. How can I be
Mhm.
supportive? How can I be
Yeah.
proactive? I may need to be calmer than usual this week. That doesn't mean like fall asleep on
Yeah, I was
the
gonna say
floor
calmer than
and
usual
not
for
move.
you is sleeping.
But like, I may need to be a little extra cautious because there's a lot that's going on
Yeah.
and I need to maybe support a little extra. And at the same time,
Yeah.
I need to feel comfortable enough to be like, you know what, I'm struggling too. This is what I'm going through.
Mm.
It has to
Mm.
go both ways because if it's just
Yeah.
one sided, that person is going to burn out very quickly.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
the support structure that happens in healthy relationships starts to stumble really fast.
So
Yeah.
I hope that means for those difficult times that you mentioned, you also felt supported. I hope. Yeah, because I it is something we're running out of time, but like
Already?
yeah,
What?
It
that
goes fast.
yeah, you have a lot to say about this.
It's a great topic.
It's been a lot of experience, but that is something that as the partner who is more likely to be, struggling, sometimes you feel like a burden, and so that
Mm.
kind of sucks, but I think it's all in your response,
Hmm.
and I've said this before that like I feel a little hint of God's unconditional love, because of the
Mm.
love that you give me, no
Wow.
matter how much of a mess that I am. So, but I do think that, like you said, it goes both ways. Sometimes you need to be like, I can't deal with you right now, but like, this is again beyond what I can do right now. Like, let's get help
Mm.
together, right? Otherwise, like you
Mhm.
said, everything's going to implode. So that open communication, comfortable, two-way communication, I think is so important.
And I think it's
Mhm.
important to know that everyone has their own mess. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
some it may be more visual, out in the open more than others. Some
Yeah.
people can hide it very well. Some people don't know how to communicate it very well. But in good, healthy relationships, you have to be able to express those things, and I think that
Mhm.
creates, a healthy environment to be able to share those needs.
Thinking it may be more out in the open because someone is a podcast host that talks about their feelings all the time. So that it's very out in the open. So that might be one reason why it's very visual or
That's
visible.
healthy.
But
Yeah, you
yeah,
have whether it be to me or the millions of people watching this.
millions of people. Oh, dang. Yeah.
You have to think, big.
Speak it into
That's right.
existence. Yes.
I love that. This was beautiful. I feel like it was, yes, the topic of how to support your anxious partner, but really was like a big side dish of premarital counseling, couples
Yes.
counseling,
I
which I
like
very
it.
much love.
Yeah.
And well, one, just from a personal level, Marianne and Chris, they're like one of the very few marriages that have impacted my life greatly. And so I am so excited that we got to have both of you on here together. We probably need a part 2, 3, 4, and 5 because we didn't even get
Happy
through
to do it.
halfway through all the notes. Yeah, so maybe it'll be about dentistry next time. Maybe it'll just be more supporting your anxious partner. But thank you
A
so
lot of
much.
anxiety in dental folks, so this is a
Yes,
good
the
topic.
overlap. Yeah, grinding your
Yeah,
teeth. Ooh, I grind my teeth. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that.
Me too. Yeah.
Um,
Or, if you need to talk about how to deal with your anxious husband when his football
yep,
team is losing, I
yep,
very
can help you
serious.
with that.
Sports
Yeah.
anxiety, that's a
yeah,
thing.
Well, that is a thing.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. This
yeah.
man loses his voice, Rachel,
Wow,
when the steel
wow.
and he's so calm, as we just talked about, and soft spoken and
Mm.
soothing, right?
But
But then
something
on
about football.
I don't
something
know.
about
I'm still
football.
trying to understand the psychology behind it because I still don't understand it, but it
We
happens.
just
Huh.
sorry, I we're just about done, but I have to mention this. We were just talking to these people at a bed and breakfast that we were at last week, and she's like a behavioral health scientist, and we were
Uh-huh.
talking about his like, going bonkers over football. And she was like deadpan, looked at him and she said, Chris, that's psychosis. Like deadpan, like she was like, you realize that's psychosis.
And I was like, I
And
completely agree.
Oh my gosh.
so sports
Wow.
psychosis,
Sports psychosis.
maybe we need to get her on here to talk to us
Yes.
about sports
Yes.
psychosis. But yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Anyway,
I love that.
yeah. Do you have a quick takeaway or anything, Rachel, that you really got from that
This was
personal
great.
conversation?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that this was really great. I think the takeaway that I'm thinking about a lot is patience and how patience is
Mm,
truly a virtue. And I think
so
that you
important.
model that very well, Chris, and Marian, the examples that you shared were really beautiful of how we can do that for each other. Um, Chris, for people who may want to reach out to you if they have questions or things like that, is there a way that they can contact you?
Sure. I do have an Instagram. What is it? CYSDDS.
Hmm.
Email address is cysdds@gmail.com. Um, or you can contact her and she'll get a hold of me.
That sounds good. So I will put all of that below. If you do want to reach out to Marianne, she's on Instagram at Waba Saba. I'm on Instagram at Real with Rachel, and the podcast is on Instagram because we're hip. We're at Connected Wellness Podcast. We're also on Facebook at Connected Wellness Podcast. So all of that will be down below. Oh, our email. In case email is more your vibe, connectedwellnesspodcast@gmail.com. So those are all of the ways you can reach out. Thank you, Chris, for coming on and being one of the very first supporters of the podcast, and also now being a guest to share so much wisdom and support. This was really great. Part two probably coming. Yeah, I'll pass it over to Marianne for our conclusion of the episode.
Thank you
My
for
pleasure.
being here.
Thanks
I
for having me.
appreciate you always and forever. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and for indulging us talking all about ourselves. But I really do hope you found something beneficial, or even just take a little bit of like encouragement that, just be open with the people that you love, be patient
Mhm.
with the people that you love, right? It goes both ways. But until next time, be well.
Yeah, be
Bye,
well,
everybody.
everybody. Bye.